What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be doing a Hypogean tier list, and as you can see, unlike the other ones, I already have the tier list kind of made out. I felt like it was kind of just distracting to kind of move them all around, and so I just wanted to throw it out there right away. So if you are looking to just kind of get a quick glance, you can, but I will say there are some caveats to a lot of these as far as how far you need to build them. So I wouldn't just look at this and just build whatever's at the top fully, because there's a lot of caveats as far as that. So I would encourage you to watch the video in its fullest. So number one, we have Mahira. Mahira is kind of like a one copy all-star unit where you really just need one copy to kind of like get the best value out of her. Her big value is her charm, which charms the enemy team, has them go towards her. The charm pretty much makes it so those who are charmed on the other team can't use their abilities for a set amount of time, which can be really helpful as far as getting your damage dealing off and just kind of wiping the other team. This ability is obviously like her like bread and butter. I know I say that phrase all the time, but it's really like what you want to use her for. And that's why one copy of her can be really helpful, because you kind of charm the team and then you let your carries take care of the rest. Now, if you do build her out fully, she'll basically do what she does, but then also have a lot more damage to follow up with that. And so if you do build her out, it's not like the end of the world type of thing. But I think with how hard getting Hypogeans and getting Celestials are at this point, it might be better to focus on someone else for now, unless you happen to get some copies just out of coincidence and you decide to build her out. But if you do, I don't think it's in the world. I think she'll just be even stronger, and she's a great unit to have at this point in the game. And next we have Mortis. Mortis is a interesting unit because he is really good at buffing a single unit on your team. It goes based off attack rating, so he will buff the unit on your team with the highest attack rating. And this is really helpful in things like Twisted Realm, Guild Boss, single damage, single target carries. And so that's where you're seeing him a lot of. Similar to Mahira, Mortis is kind of like a one copy wonder where if you have one copy of him, you really reap a lot of the benefits of what he does. Now, with that being said, you could obviously level him up. He's available in the shop, and so you can get technically unlimited copies of him. It's just going to take a long time. And so you can use those copies to kind of build him up over time, and then he'll just do what he does, but even better. And so I think he's going to be an essential part of these boss or single target teams, at least some of the teams. Obviously there's different variations of things, but I think right now, if you're wanting for an easy way to kind of buff your damage on these type of game modes, I would say Mortis is your best bet. Next we have Mezoth. Mezoth is an interesting unit because he's basically just super tanky. He gets bonus health at the beginning of the round or fight or whatever you want to call it, and then it kind of decreases over time. So you basically throw him in there if you need someone to really tank a lot at the beginning of the fight, and that's what his biggest use is for. You can find him useful in campaign, Twisted Realm, towers, stuff like that. But I don't think he's really like useful outside of that. He has like, his kit is basically just super tanky, and so you want to not really invest a lot in him. He's great if you have one copy of him, you throw him in there, he can tank, and then he does his job. Now, as the game progresses, I don't think he will be as helpful or beneficial unless you build him out to be super tanky. But I think he has a place in the game right now, and I'd put him at A. That's a very low A, like A minus minus, probably B plus if I'm being realistic. But I think for variety's sake, I would put him at A, and especially when you compare him to the other units that are left, I think he does set himself apart from the bottom three. Next, we have Khazard. Khazard is one of my favorite units as far as like his design, the icy theme. I think he's just really cool. With that being said, I don't think he's as good as his coolness is. Coolness because he's icy. But I think if he's built out, he can be good. I think if you were to fully build him out, he would do a ton of damage. But I think long-term investment-wise, he might not be worth it. As more units come into the game, I don't think he will hold his value. Now, if he were to be like free in the shop, like I would say for sure go for him, build him out. He did get some buffs to his kits compared to his normal AFK vanilla counterpart. He is stronger in a lot of areas. They buffed a lot of his damage ratios. But I just think with these units, it's just hard to argue like the investment that's worth them right now, when you consider all the other units in the game. And so I think if you have a lot of copies of him and you decide to build him, sure, that's great. But I don't think he's really worth pulling for at this point. Next, we have Aziz. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Aziz, Azizzy, I don't know. But similar to some of the other characters I've talked about, he's decent at what he does. He burns the ground, does a lot of AoE damage, has some debuffing and buffing in his kit, and he just isn't worth the investment. So I'd put him at B because if you were to build him out fully, he would do a lot of damage. He would do a lot. He'd be like a carry for a long time. But is his investment super worth it at this point? Probably not. But I think he's not like garbage. He has received a little bit of buffs, like I mentioned, in some of the previous characters. He does more than he does in the vanilla game, but at the same time, he's just kind of eh. And then last is Zekas, whatever his name is. He's kind of the lowest on the totem pole as far as hypogenes go. He received some buffs for his damage and a few of his abilities, but in the base game, he was kind of trash, and I think that's kind of where he's at right now. He's just kind of like, I would rather build the two above him out than him at this point. I don't think he really fits in like a certain area very well. And if there is, it's going to be very niche and not worth building him up fully for that. I think over time, we're going to see him just kind of drop more and more and more in the Hypogean list. He's just kind of one of those units that is just kind of not worth really thinking about. I wouldn't build him out. Even if you get a lot of copies of him, I guess you could build him out some. But I wouldn't invest in like his signature item or anything like that if you happen to get him up 1 or 2 levels. And so that's my Hypogean tier list. I know the list is pretty small. There's only 6 of them in the game right now. Hypogenes are hard to find. It's just kind of a weird place in the game. But luckily, the top 3 are kind of one copy wonders where you really don't need a lot of investment in them or a lot of copies for them to do what they're meant to do. Now, as the game progresses, we'll see if they hold their value as one copy units, or if they kind of dwindle. And as you kind of get farther into the game, my guess is that's how it's going to be. And so I think the Celestials are probably worth investing in a little more, like Taline, over some of these units at this point. But I think if you were to get Taline fully buffed out and you wanted to go for Hypogene, one of the S tier units are fine to invest in. Like I said, you don't need to invest in them, but you're not going to like be destroyed or like have your progress completely destroyed. You might even want to hold on to your cards if you have a Taline fully built out and then you're kind of at this point. But that's just my opinion. I'm still working on my Taline and she's super low level still. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully they have more ways of getting these units in the game. But appreciate y'all for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the tier list. If you disagree, agree. If there's any units in this list that you have built out that you have had certain experiences with that you want to share. And appreciate y'all and thanks for watching. Peace.